my marriage is in trouble. My marriage is in trouble. As a pastor's wife, I'm coming to my pastors and leaders and I'm saying, our marriage is in trouble. Nobody came to make sure Diamond was okay. Not one person. And the people that I did go to and the people that I did talk to and share all this information with were silenced. But I told that man that night, sitting on the floor, I am not happy. I am not supposed to feel like this as a wife. You haven't, and I don't want people to take this and run with it. But that man didn't take me on trips and spoil me, and we didn't have nice dinners, and he didn't surprise me with things. Everything that I owned by the time that I got ready to leave that marriage fit within a Jeep Compass. My personal belongings.
Can we talk about pastors for a second? Not all of them. Because surely, there are some genuine ones out there doing God's actual work. But you know the type I'm talking about. The ones who walk into a room like the atmosphere shifted the moment they arrived. The ones who preach with that voice. That slow, deep, I have been personally briefed by heaven voice. Like they're not just reading scripture. They're receiving it in real time. Life updates, direct from the source, while the rest of us are still on the waiting list. And we sit there, every Sunday, in our good outfits, giving our best offering, nodding along. Because surely, a man that confident about how everyone else should be living must actually be living right himself. Honey, today I want to tell you about Diamond. She was 20 years old, fresh out of high school, full of faith. And she fell for one of these men, not the performance, the man underneath it. She believed in him. She built with him. She held that marriage together with prayer and sheer will, while he stood on a platform every single week, telling other people how to do exactly what he was failing to do at home. And when things started falling apart, when Diamond went to her church, her leaders, her community, and said, "Help me," they managed it like a PR crisis. Not a marriage, not a human being asking for help. This is her story. And baby, by the time we are done here, you are going to have thoughts. Drop them in the comments because we are going to need to talk after this. Let's go.
Okay, here is part one of why I am no longer a pastor's wife. I got married at 20 years old. I know I only look 20. I'm 28 and I got married at 20. And at that time, what I now know, obviously being very young, is that my life was really broken. I was really broken from seeing my parents go through divorce. I was really broken, which was like a 6.5 year process. I think my mom told me when I was in the 6th grade that she and my dad were going to be divorcing, and they did not finally divorce until I was 10th or 11th grade. So for all of those years, I was like, my parents are going to be together, they're not. My parents are together, they're not. Within that span of time, I also witnessed three very close family members pass away: my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my uncle, all within the span of 2.5 years. And I remember also leaving my childhood home, not getting to say goodbye to my childhood home, and a culmination of things. And so my mindset getting married so early was, I want a family. I want to create what I no longer have. And I would say that I also had the most amazing mom, in the sense that she is such a nurturing soul. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, I want to be like her. And I remember after I graduated high school, and making this, because it was only 2-3 years until I met, my former spouse. I graduated high school and I wanted to go to performing arts school. And there were a lot of things that prohibited that from happening. I think there was a lot of fear. And I also think that one of the biggest factors was the relationship that I had with my mom at the time. And I really allowed her influence in my life to deter me from going that direction, to the school that I really wanted to go to. And I just was in a very shaky place in my relationship with God. I've known God my whole entire life. people will joke and say like, oh, I bet you were so fun before you were a Christian. I've never not identified as a Christian. I've always known Jesus. I got baptized at like 7, 8 years old, and I love him first and foremost. I love him. That's my dog. Like, I would not be here without him. And I think the decision not to go to performing arts school left me very lost and confused. And the one thing that I started to realize that I loved a lot was ministry. And I had this mindset, deciding not to go to performing arts school, that if I was not going to go, I had this mindset like, oh, I'm gonna like then sing for God. Like, I'm like, I don't want to sing for the world. I want to sing for God. And so that then put me in this space in ministry where I was like very fascinated with how the church worked. And always like, I went to a performing arts elementary school, like literally kindergarten through 5th grade. So I've always had a natural like desire for the platform, not in any other sense outside of the fact that like I feel very alive on stage. I feel like being on a platform is a skill and a gift that God has given me in the world and in the church. And I was just like at this place where like, how do these like sectors kind of like, how do they come together? So my type were men who were on the platform and things of this nature, and I very much so like gravitated towards that type of man, specifically in ministry. And it wasn't very far off for me, considering that I had grown up in the church my entire life. During COVID was the longest period of time that I've ever not attended church, and that is a little bit of backstory just to produce insight as to why I kind of like got married young, what my life looked like prior to. And I'm also sharing a little bit about like my own struggles and my own like hurts and like childhood traumas, because this is in no way, shape, or form a direct like, this isn't like like, you also have to like look within yourself and be like, why did you make this decision? You were young. You didn't know any better. These were the things that you struggled with. These were the things that you went through. And these were the things that ultimately led to you making this decision. Okay. So meeting then my former spouse was at a church that I had been attending for several years, where I grew up in Georgia. And at that time, I saw him, and I have a story on YouTube. A lot of y'all know this. Some of y'all are like real slick with it. Like, I remember seeing you on YouTube. God, like crazy God story, how I met my husband. I will gladly put that video back up for y'all to look at. Gladly. He ain't in it. I will gladly put that video up. So I felt like I had met my spouse. I remember I was in the church on the stage, getting ready to do worship that night. During rehearsal, he comes in, and I had this like out of body experience that I can recall. And I'm like, that's my spouse. And this man ended up obviously moving to the church. I didn't know he was going to, I didn't know who he was. I literally had no idea who this man was. We become really close friends over the span of a year and a half. And we decide that he was on this 2-year commitment. He wasn't dating for 2 years. And then once his commitment was up, we had some conversation a couple months prior. He told me that he wanted to date me. I shared with him like, hey, I feel like God gave me this word about you. And we got married. The marriage in and of itself was never great. And you don't know what you don't know because you've never been married. But the thing that I felt I won't say the whole entire time, but I had this like underlying discomfort about the way that I wanted to feel. And, so this is like now 2018, and social media is just, just continuing to evolve. And I just have this like underlying like discontentment for my life. I just would see people interact with each other in these like very like romantic ways on socials or in person, and I'm like, that's not real. Like, they're doing that for show. Like, men don't really feel like that about their women. And I remember one of the first things that I was like, this is off, was we had been married for maybe 4 or 5 months, and I walk into the living room from behind the couch, and he jumped like I didn't live there. And I was just like, hey, I live here. Like, are you good? I'm like, are you okay? Because you've been like very, very, very quiet. And his response was like, yeah, I'm just watching TV. And I will never, ever forget that moment. It was that moment for me that maybe a lot of women talk about that they have being married, where you're like, this is not the same person. And that was probably 4 or 5 months in. From there, things just went downhill, and they went downhill fast. He was always very tired, very fatigued, struggled mentally, chronic migraines, a a lot of inflammation in the body, and I just couldn't quite ever put my finger on like what was wrong with this man. And so we'll go into part 2. This is part 2 of why I am no longer a pastor's wife. Well, I'm no longer a wife, period. I will say that my mom was one who was like, I don't know. I don't think I like the way that I don't hear him talk about you and your dreams and your ambitions and your goals enough. When I ask him what his plans are and what he sees when he sees himself with you, he often talks about himself. Okay, which is an issue that I think is very forward with a lot of ministers and pastors. There is this song, I can't remember the name of it. It's like a song by this Christian rapper, and I can't remember the pastor that is featured on this song. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about, but in the song, he talks about like how man is not wired for the applause of man. He says that's not good for your soul. And that just plays on my mind, repeat all day long. And so I think the reoccurring, like the people like that could probably agree and testify with me in the comment section, the issue is man is not created and wired to receive the weight, the accolades, the applause. What that does for somebody who also does not have a healthy sense of self, has not done the work to handle that type of pressure and weight, i.e. insecurities, i.e. childhood traumas, whatever the case may be. I think that is one of the most like evident issues, is being in the spotlight for years, all while dealing with the normal Monday pressures of life. You got bills, you gotta take care of your health, you gotta live right, and every single week you're sitting on the platform, whether it be in front of 3,000, 30,000, telling other people how they're supposed to live. That is hard. That's not a calling I want. And so with that, I'm taking a very, very balanced approach to this, because I also don't want people to think that I did. People like, it's it takes a lot of heart, baby. I know. 9 times out of 10, if we had a second bedroom, that second bedroom was a dedicated prayer room. Dedicated. Because as a spouse, you are also carrying the weight of everything that this person is experiencing. And they're not meant to carry that alone. And I carried it well, or at least I thought I was. So that's what I would say as it pertains to my heart and my understanding behind, like, I get the weight, I get the pressure. And I think the reason why so many, it's like, what are these pastors doing? It's not like, what are they doing? It's more so like, what are they not doing? What is the work that they haven't done? What is the therapy they haven't done? What is the, what are the issues they have failed to refuse? Because if I can really like go into details, my heart aches for that man very often, because I'm like, you did not have the skills. Nobody equipped you to deal with your stuff. And then you got on a platform in front of people week after week after week and tried to tell them what to do and how to live their lives, when inside, like, you are a little boy. You still have wounds for how for how your parents treated you. And you carry that every single week. But the issue is not the problem. It's like, have you done the work to deal with it? And instead of dealing with it, the platform becomes a Band-Aid. Everybody else thinks I'm doing really good. And then you actually start convincing yourself that you're doing really good, and you're not. And that weight will probably make one a little bit crazy. Psychotic, might add. And where I saw this manifest in my own life was, this is year like 5.5. Is this year 5? 6, can't remember. Dude hits me up one day. Hey, I ain't doing so hot. I'm gonna go ahead and check myself in. As a text message. And this is the beginning of the end. Okay? This is the beginning of the end. Because first off, I'm sitting here at lunch with another pastor, female, of course, because that could sound crazy. And I'm like, how am I getting a text message from my spouse telling me I need to seek professional help? Which therapy, I guess, really only works if you're honest. I was never in any of the sessions. I was never invited. I never knew anything about therapy, because that was just a room that I was not ever invited into. I tried, I testified, and I couldn't get to him on that level. So I remember getting a text message and I felt like my world was like literally like collapsing. I'm like, I don't understand how we got here, but let's figure it out. Let's fix it. Let's put on the pastor's wife face. Let's fix it. Let's figure it out. So head to the hospital. I have one of the ladies on staff at the church who was literally pastoral care trail me to the hospital. We get there and it was like 2.5 hours before I could see him. I was a absolute mess. And they make you wait because they have these certain hours that you can visit. And I finally go into the room and it's like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, how we doing? Like, what's up? And what he tells me is like, Holy Spirit told me it's either, you know, the ministry or your wife. And at the time we were young adult pastors at a church. So let me just also clarify, this man was never a bishop. He never was a pastor of a whole entire church. He only oversaw ministries of churches over the span of 6 years. And I was like, okay, have been struggling with his mental health, like I shared previously. And that was hard for me. I would say that was hard for me because I did not have a lot of context for what that was, because his mental health at the time was not something I had experienced, but maybe have we since. And so my heart just really broke for him. And I was like, okay, what do we do? And we're gonna go ahead and go into part 3. Okay, this is part 3, why I am no longer a pastor's wife. To be in a hospital with your spouse because they are not doing mentally well, it's just like, it's not a good feeling. Like I said, the pastor who was on staff, pastoral care, was there. And then I remember her saying like, do you want to reach out to like big dog up top? Do you want to call him and let him know what's going on? I'll say like one of the things that when it comes to like mental health is it's tricky, especially when you're in ministry, because people don't realize like how ministry works. And we can talk about this. I would love to actually talk about this conversation. Should ministers get paid? Why they get paid? How does the church run? And all these things. Like, we can have that conversation. First thing that pops in his head and my head is like, if we tell them that you're struggling with your mental health, are you going to lose your job? And if you lose your job, what are you going to do? You had just purchased a house the year before, and you know, there's just, like I said, you're a pastor, but you also just have the mundane like worries of life to deal with. And I'm like, hey, Pastor so-and-so thinks we should let Pastor know what's going on. What do you think? He finally says yes. I remember I get into the room and I'm like, what's going on? We talk and he says, you know, 50% of my anxiety has stemmed from insert girl's name who worked at and attended the church. Specifically was in the ministry that we were pastoring. And my heart sank into my ass. Because I already knew to a degree. As a wife, I'm like, what is something, you have this thing with this person that you don't have with anybody else? And I'm gonna be very, very mindful right now in this moment to try to protect this girl. And I don't know why I'm doing it, because it's gonna be very evident to some who this person was, and I don't know why I'm doing this. But I am going to say right now, I forgive her. I forgive you. I forgive you for playing in my face, smiling in my face, the very weird remarks and gestures made towards me, and at that time, my marriage. I genuinely do forgive her, and my heart also aches for you if you so happen to see this. And it saddens me, and I will say this is honestly probably one of the things that hurt me the most. Is previous to this, I had an online ministry / coaching mentorship where I help young women prepare for marriage. And this is a girl that I would have loved the opportunity to hold hands and walk through seasons of singleness, dating, all the things with her. And instead, it ended up being a scenario where even given the opportunity to see if this girl's heart really was spiteful. I assume she was, and I'm going to stand and believe that she was not necessarily spiteful, but deceptive is what I would call her behavior. I won't call her deceptive, but I think the behavior was very deceptive. And it was very, just a nasty spirit. And in an attempt to not make this about her, because it's really not, what I will say is to pastors who may be watching this, when a leader or a woman or man comes to you and they tell you that there is an issue as it pertains to a specific person, please believe them. At this time, we're having these conversations with leadership, with the church. This is what's going on. My marriage is in trouble. My marriage is in trouble. As a pastor's wife, I'm coming to my pastors and leaders and I'm saying, our marriage is in trouble. And the thing that's super hard and challenging is like, I don't know if they saw that he was the problem. And because of that, they created a plan then to have us exit. I don't know if she was really the problem, and because of the church politics and structure, they protected her because of that. I don't know if they didn't know what to do, but all I know is that people that I sat across the table with and broke bread with had like what I thought was community with. Like, these are people that I loved, iced me out and stopped talking to me. And then you still have to show up week after week like nothing's wrong. And I was at that time on the worship team for the main church. I was over our young adult worship team because we were young adult pastors. I was on the women's ministry team, and this is a very high production church, so I mean, just anytime there's a production of any type, I was there. I showed up. I gave my time, my energy. And again, to look these people in the face and say like, hey, my marriage is in trouble, help me. And for no one to give us a clear roadmap on how to be helped, regardless of the situation. I even hate that in my mind. I'm like, was it him? Was it her? It doesn't matter. This is what happened to me. Nobody came to make sure Diamond was okay. Not one person. And the people that I did go to and the people that I did talk to and share all this information with were silenced. If you talk to this girl again, like I have people that were like, oh, like I think these are like, this is like my church mom figures and my men. We can't talk to you about that no more.
Okay, let's make sure we are all caught up. This woman was 20 years old, married to a pastor, living states away from her entire family, pouring herself into a ministry, a church, a life that she built around this man. And the first real sign that something was wrong wasn't a fight, wasn't a confession. It was her husband jumping when she walked into their own living room, 4 months in, like a man with something heavy on his conscience, like a man whose mind was somewhere it had no business being. And instead of addressing it, he kept going, she kept covering. She turned the spare bedroom into a prayer room. Dedicated, she said, because as a pastor's wife, that is what you do. You carry the weight quietly. You don't air it out. You pray it out. And somewhere in that silence, a woman found a door cracked open just wide enough to walk through. We are going to call her Betsy. Diamond's words, not mine. And I want you to pay very close attention to what Betsy does next, because the audacity alone should be studied in a classroom.
What actually happened and transpired during the time that we were having these conversations? So I remember the first conversation that I had was with my former spouse. And we were at an event of which the girl was also attending. And there was this very, very weird interaction that I saw them have. He was down on the platform doing this like performance for some kids at an event we were, ministering to. And she was sitting right down below me on this like stadium like seating. And what happened was there was another young man at that event who was having a very like emotional response to something that was happening within the setting. And the girl, i.e. the girl who my former spouse had somewhat of an emotional affair with, I don't know, starts to like rub his back. And I'm sitting here like, why is she doing this right now? And what I saw was the way that she looked at my ex-husband and my ex-husband was looking at her. And I was like, I feel like she's trying to make him jealous right now. And this is so odd. Like, I know this now. Back then I just didn't know. We end up having a conversation about it, me and my former spouse. He really is the one who approached me, and he was like, hey, like, what was that whole interaction? Because later on, the young man then came to me and said, hey, I'm now starting to have feelings for her. I would too. Like, she just got done caressing your back for 2.5 minutes. It was inappropriate. You don't do that. So former husband then asked me, like, what was that interaction? I'm like, I don't know. And he says to me, well, I feel like she does the same thing to me. We're just gonna call her Betsy. We're just gonna call her Betsy, just to help you guys in the storyteller process. I feel like Betsy does the same thing to me. Well, I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, she be rubbing your back? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean she does the same thing to you? He says, like, she just like gets in my head. I'm like, get in your, like, what do you mean gets in your head? I'm like, okay, well, is there anything else like I need to be made aware of? Well, she stops by my desk unannounced, and, she over compliments me. Like, she, when service is getting ready to end, she'll come to me, she'll say bye, and then she'll leave, and then she'll come back and she'll say bye to me again. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm hearing what he's saying, but I'm really, really hearing what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have the emotional depth and capacity at that time to actually like dissect and be like, nigga, you playing in my face. I don't have it. I don't have that in me at that time. We're in full blown summer ministry, camp, this, that, events here and there. My life is immersed. Okay. Not only that, you are struggling with your mental health so much so that you are very disengaged at home. I'm doing everything. I'm carrying the marriage on my back. I'm not worried about this girl. So, or at least I did not think I needed to be. Okay. So then what ends up happening is we leave the campgrounds. The next day, I'm like, I'm going to have a conversation with her direct upline. And this was someone that I loved, trusted, really felt like always had my back, all the things. I'm like, this is going to be, we'll just have a conversation. And so I go to her and I told her the interaction. I'm like, hey, like as a young woman, like I've been a single young woman in ministry, and I think the way that she engaged with this other young man at the event was inappropriate. And I just want to make sure that like she's coached and stewarded appropriately. Okay. This woman looks at me and says, Adime, the Holy Spirit told me that you were going to come and talk to me about Betsy today. Do y'all hear that horn? The tree? And I was like, oh, okay. And I heard her, but also her, because come on, like, what do you mean the Holy Spirit told you that I was going to come and talk to you today about this girl? Playing in my face. I simply said to her, I just want to make sure I don't need to keep my eyes on her. Because eyes is going to be way more than eyes, I promise you that. Well, days later, right? We are now like, hey, okay, so this is what happened. It's all coming back to me. So I'm talking to old dude, former spouse. And I'm like, this situation seems to be like evolving and I'm very unhealthy for you. Like, what do we need to do? He starts having conversations with trusted friends, mentors. They're telling him this girl is a Jezebel, that they have seen and had experiences. These are his mentors telling him this, like, hey, we've seen and experienced similar things like within churches that we've been a part of. Like, she needs to go. Like, she needs to go. You basically need to tell your pastor it's you or it's her. This was the advice that he was given. So I think it's a little dramatic. I do. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's a little bit dramatic that you are there. In my mind, there's no like evidence of anything for sure that this girl has done, except try to bring cookies to my house when Diamond, don't be so naive. Don't be so naive. Y'all, please pray for me right now. I'm like, this girl hasn't like done anything quite, because I'm a pastor's wife. Like, I have the heart of like a pastor. I am like, how do we steward, like, how do we govern this girl accordingly? Not only is my pastor, like, we're her pastor. She's in the ministry that we're pastoring. So to just be like, she needs to go, I'm like, well, I don't even think that's going to work. And it didn't. Okay. So what then ends up happening is my former husband has a conversation with Betsy's direct upline, calls her up and is like, these are all the things she's doing. She needs to go. She's a Jezebel. And what I remember during this conversation was her direct upline was like, you know what? I've always thought about what I would have to do in this situation if it came down to you or her. Give me some time. I need to think about what I need to do with her. I got to figure out what to do with her. And that's part one. Okay, cool. So now we're having a conversation with pastors and, mentors. They're like, she needs to go. is they're telling my former spouse, it's either you or it's her, and this is how you need to approach the situation, or at least this is what I'm being told. Because y'all gotta remember, I don't know what I don't know, and all I know is what I was told. I am not like, it seems very dramatic of us to just be like, this girl needs to leave the church. Like, she works at the church. Like, we also, like, this was in a different state. We weren't from this state. We didn't have any family in this state. This girl wasn't from this state. She didn't have any family in this state. So the idea of then saying, like, you know, either party needs to like up and leave, it's just like crazy. Like, I just thought that was a crazy concept, to be honest. Her direct upline essentially tells us, like, hey, I think you guys need to talk to like senior pastor and talk to him. She's like, I'm out. I'm out. And it's crazy. Like, when I say, like, again, this is somebody I loved, trusted, like all the things, like exchange gifts, been in your house, all of that, right? I remember texting her after the fact, and I was like, hey, I really appreciate you, you know, helping us walk through this. You know, your support means a lot to me. Never heard from her until we left that church. Never heard from her again. Would not look me in the eye. None of that. The very next day, we end up having a conversation with our senior pastor. And we go in, and he's like, hey, like, come in on a Saturday. That way no one's really in the, you know, in the church. It's pretty like low key. Nobody will have to see you meeting with pastor. Cool. Okay, whatever, we come in. And it's him, and it's also the executive pastor there. And I was a little thrown by that because I think it was just a little too sensitive of a situation for someone else to be brought in, not knowing that they were going to be there. So you were instantly thrown a curveball. Like, boom, there's another body in the room that we were not prepared for. But the show goes on, and we proceed to tell them, you know, former spouse is telling them his side of the story. These are the things she's doing. She's over complimenting me. She's, you know, she had some very strange, weird, like, remarks towards me. She would always be like, Mike, you're so pretty, you're so pretty, you're so pretty. I wish I could be like you. You just seem so perfect. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're just so cool. Like, it was just like weird. I was like, girl, like, get a grip, like, find yourself. So we're sharing all of the ways that she's engaged with us, and always. And yes, she did. When I told you guys my former spouse had to go to the hospital, she reached out, as some of the other young adults and people in the church said. Very few people knew what was going on, or at least I think. And she asked if she could bake cookies. I'm like, no, like, we're fine. Like, we don't need any, like, we're okay. And like insisted. And then I also remember she sends me this voice memo, and it's like, I should have been there. I feel like such a horrible friend. I could tell he was off. I knew something was going on, and I wasn't there. And I'm like, who does this girl think she is? And it's really, when I think about it, y'all, I'm from Macon, Georgia. I'm really from the sticks. When I think about it, I just know it was the Lord on my side, just keeping my mind, because there is no way that a diamond now would have ever tolerated some foolery like that. I tell you that much. So these are the things that we're sharing in this closing, and here's where the evidence comes in. Okay, y'all ready? Also, still love this girl. Hope you're doing well. But when you play stupid games, baby girl, you're going to get stupid prizes. You're going to get stupid prizes. The church is going to get a stupid prize at this point. Everybody's a winner, okay? Not spite. It's just the facts. Nobody came checking for me. I ain't coming to check for y'all. I hate to tell you, I hate it to be like this. I'm just talking to my former spouse one day. And I'm like, I've just been a little bit uncomfortable with some of the things that she's done. And, you know, like the cookies, like that was a stretch. And it was the fact of like how she showed up at my house, hoping that he was there. Because I was like, yeah, whatever, you can go ahead, like, fine, like, bring the cookies, child, like, whatever you're gonna do. You know, like Jesus told Judas, do whatever you're gonna do. Okay, so brings the cookies, but like people were like dropping stuff at my house. This girl had turned her car off, had her keys in her hand and everything. I'm I'm like, oh, you coming to hang out, baby. You come hang out with me. And did. And the thing, I know it feels like I'm getting off track, but I was like, I'm gonna fill you out. I'm gonna fill you out. Go on, come here. He was gone. And I knew he was gonna be gone for a while, but I'm gonna fill you out. Go on, come on up in here. What you wanna talk about? Your spirit is nasty. You're behaving weird. You're moving weird, okay? And I'm already on your case. And instead of just assuming and like I need to fill you out. And that's exactly what I did with her when she tried to bring them little cookies over there to my house. So now we're going back to the piece of evidence, getting ready to go into this meeting, and I'm talking to my former spouse and I'm telling him, yo, because the whole cookie situation was a bit much. We're in a text thread. This girl is like, oh, like, do you like marshmallows in your cookies? When I saw that text, I was like, I know this is not happening. I be damn. I know it. I'm too nice. Oh. I'm too nice. Girl is in the text for me and my former spouse, and you're asking this man if he wants marshmallows in his cookies. Are you crazy? So I say to him, hey, yeah, some of this has been a bit egregious, and I don't like it. And also, I remember, this is the conversation I'm saying to him, she also said something to me about wanting to, like, what she could do, like, could she write a letter? And I said, because something like that, like writing a letter, would be highly inappropriate. This man looks at me like I dropped his ice cream cone upside down and every sprinkle on it literally dispersed across the room. And he's like, oh, it would be? Nigga, in what world did you think it would be appropriate for a girl who works at the church and is a part of the ministry that we're pastoring to write you a letter? In what world? In what world would you think it's okay and then not tell your wife? I gotta pause. Come back for part 6. This is why I'm no longer a pastor's wife, part 6. At this time, I am now reading the letter a young woman has wrote my former spouse that has been in his possession for all of 2.5 weeks. It's just in your backpack, nigga. It's 2 loose leaf sheets of paper. 2. It's in a card, and there's 2 pieces of paper. It's tri-folded. One says prayer. Y'all know how us women is. We real. My heart is getting. Women are real. Women are really we're very we pay attention to detail. Y'all remember how y'all felt writing them little letters in elementary school and whatnot? I guess that's how she felt. One says prayer, one says letter. And the first one starts out by saying, hey, inserts former spouse's name. I hope this isn't weird. Girl, what? What do you mean, I hope this isn't weird? It's weird. What was in the letter was, all of this encouragement and like, you remember the dream I told you I had about the throne room and the this and the that? It wasn't anything like fantasy, okay? But the fact remains is this girl took it upon her free time to write, probably on the church's time, to write 2 full pages of love letters to my former spouse. And I'm like, how you've had this how long? How did you get this? What was the interaction? Like, please explain this situation to me. So letter, let's talk pastor. We go in there, executive pastor's there, senior pastor's there. I'm like, okay, this is not fun. Anxiety is bad. And we are telling him, again, all the things that she's doing, blah, blah. And here's this letter. And I come in there like, based upon my analysis, this girl has been behaving very deceptively. and these are all the things, and I've done my research, and I'm in there with my 5 points, like boom, 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 boom. The energy in the room was like they'd been prepped, and it felt like this was transitioning out of this being a relational pastoral support. I'm really just trying to like be there, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, you so stupid, and you're so weak-minded, and you are letting this girl that, like, you're letting all of this happen for what? Like, stand up, nigga. Stand up is really how I felt. I feel like I'm in there, like, I felt like I'm in a PTO meeting and you're the child is really how I felt. And we leave that meeting. They tell us, I remember Pastor reads the letter and he's just like, you know, if you start a letter with, I hope this isn't weird, then it's weird. And he's like, we're going to reprimand her. I'm going to like bring the hammer down. Like, you don't behave like this. Like, you don't act like this. This is highly inappropriate. And there are going to be consequences for how she's behaving. Looks me in my eyes. Name, my name, his name. Do not worry. I'm going to handle this. When I say like, this is somebody that I just like really looked up to, like trusted, like and still do, you know, to a degree, because I'm like, this poor man, he probably know what to do. Child, I didn't know what to do, if we're being so honest. But I'm the sheep. I'm the sheep. You're the shepherd. I've never been here before. I've never been in this scenario. And you're telling me what you're going to do, so I believe you that you're going to handle the situation. Okay? We leave the meeting. I feel confident-ish in whatever leadership has decided. A couple days later, I am at the church. I was waiting in his office. Like, he wasn't in his office, and she was like waiting in his office. It was something like silly, and it just like, it completely like flustered him. And he was just like, this has to get handled and we need to talk to Pastor.
I need a moment, because what we just witnessed is a masterclass in doing the absolute most while maintaining total plausible deniability. Betsy brought cookies. She wrote a letter, 2 full pages, tri-folded, with a prayer section and a letter section, because she came prepared. She said, I hope this isn't weird, at the top. The fact that you felt the need to say that already tells us everything we need to know. And Diamond, this woman who, if she were any one of us, would have read Betsy her rights on any given Tuesday, had to stand there, composed, gracious, forgiving, because she was a pastor's wife. You don't cause scenes. You don't corner women in the parking lot. You don't say what is actually on your mind. You steward the situation. You bring it to leadership. You handle it with decorum. Meanwhile, this man, this pastor, had that letter sitting in his backpack for 2.5 weeks without telling his wife a single word about it. And the church? 5 meetings, multiple pastors. And what did Betsy get? A slap on the wrist. No young adult services for a month. No missions trip. That's it. While Diamond, the woman who showed up to every service, ran every ministry, gave her entire life to that church, got iced out, silenced, and then found out through a friend that leadership had told Betsy privately, it's not your fault, not your fault. The audacity of that building.
I'm living in a house that does not feel like my home. I am multiple states away from my family and have been now for years. And every single day that I wake up, I am trying to figure out what version of a person am I going to get. Am I going to get a happy version? Am I going to get a disassociated version? Am I going to get a depressed version? The following week, the executive pastor, this executive pastor, initiates a meeting with my former spouse. So he tells me, hey, Pastor so-and-so is going to take me to lunch. I'm like, okay, cool. Am I invited? Remember, I looked at these people and I was like, my marriage is in trouble, and they said it's gonna help me. So am I invited? Do I get to be a part of it? And I asked him, and he was like, no, just me. Like, I know this this is not good. So I'm like, okay, cool. Call me when the meeting's over and let me know how it goes. He calls me after the fact. He says, hey, they have decided that she's no longer going to be allowed to come to our young adult services, and she is not going to be able to go on the missions trip here coming up in the next month. And I'm like, that's it? Here I am again, like I'm on your side. Like even though I think you are a complete goofball, Jamal. You're a disaster at this point, but I'm rocking with you. You're my spouse. My recollection was, I'm going to bring the hammer down. This isn't appropriate. She can't behave like this. There are consequences for behaving in this manner. And that's what I'm waiting on. Where's the hammer? Because it just felt like a no. And so I'm like, well, who's going to talk to her? Because Pastor said he was going to talk to her. So is he going to talk to her? What's happening? Actually, I don't like this. I said, no, this is stupid. No, no, I'm coming up to the church. Yeah, I'm coming to the church. Yeah, figure out how to meet a pastor, cause I need to talk to him. Yeah. So now we gotta pull our big girl pants on and make our way. And that's what I do. I go up to the church, and I'm very mindful. I'm very considerate. I heard this crazy story about how I went up there and beat on the pastor's door and said, I need to speak to pastor now. Y'all, this is a multicultural, multi-generational church, but the leadership is a Caucasian man. Y'all really think I'm gonna let them think I'm the angry black woman? Go beat on a door? Are you crazy? Do you know what they would? Come on now. Calm, cool, and collected. I go up there, and I'm so proud of myself for how I navigated this whole situation. And that's why I don't have a single problem telling it how it is now. Because baby, you don't have not one bad thing to say about me, not one. I promise you, you don't. I promise you, you don't. Not one bad thing to say about me. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you ain't got my character, my integrity. If I've ever made a mistake, if I've ever offended somebody, I've apologized, I've taken accountability. But who I am, the way that I've navigated those uncharted territory waters, people don't understand the heart it takes to be a pastor's wife and the assignment, blah, blah, blah. I beg your pardon. Shut up. You don't know nothing. All loud. I go up there calm, cool, and collected. Cause what? And I'm like, Pastor so-and-so, this is the executive, okay? Now, we came up here a few days ago with senior pastor, and he told me that he was going to be the one to navigate this whole situation. So first off, why am I talking to you? But not only that, why did you take solely old boy to lunch and you didn't, and I wasn't invited? Can you help me understand that? Not only that, but who is talking to old girl? Well, you know, we've decided to let her direct upline handle her, because that is her ministry that she oversees with her, you know, that's essentially why we have these leaders in place. Pastor does not need to touch it, so we have just decided that we're going to allow her direct upline to handle it. Oh, you mean the lady who I thought was my friend, and the person who's no longer talking to me, the person who can't look me in the eye, who can't respond to my text? She's talking to her? Got it. Okay, so that Pastor so-and-so, your name. I said no disrespect to you. I said, I appreciate you, but this is just not what I was told. I said, now, if this is what I was told from the beginning, then so be it. I have no issue, you know, submitting to authority, being honorable in this way, but this is just not what I was told. So I unfortunately do need to talk to our senior pastor, and I need to talk to him now. So we did. And this is where we get ready to go into meeting number 5. And I think we're getting ready to be on part 7. Like, chill. This is part 8 of why I am no longer pastor's wife. Y'all was stressing me out, so I had to go out the country real quick, but I'm back and we're finishing this story. Okay, so let's get into the part of the story where we talk about what actually ended up happening as a result of my former spouse having an emotional affair, there being a girl who worked at the church and was a part of the ministry that we were the pastors of. What ultimately end up happening, because it's really foggy in my head, and sometimes it gets my literally my brain protects me from remembering all that occurred. I remember we decided to go to our pastors and leaders and say, you know what? This man is not in a healthy enough place to do ministry, because you have now, from my POV, created a bigger mess than what deemed necessary. And I think I'm embarrassed at this point. I think I'm embarrassed, and I'm like, maybe you need a timeout. Maybe we need a timeout from full-time ministry. So you are considering and talking to other pastors that are in your circle. This is him, talking to other pastors and leaders in his circle, and they're saying, hey, maybe you should sit out for a little bit. So we go to our pastors and we say, hey, I think we need some time. They're like, what is some time? Maybe a year. They come back to us, they say, how does a 3-month sabbatical sound? Now keep in mind, our structure weekly was Sundays service, 2 services. So we get to church 9 times out of 10 at 7:45. We do 2 services, we go home, boom. Mondays, usually nothing. He's in the office Monday through Friday. Monday or Tuesday, we're doing some sort of volleyball with our young adults. Wednesday is Bible study. I'm getting there. I'm prepping for worship. Thursday is young adults. So 3 to 4 times a week, we're at the church. So you say to us a 3-month sabbatical, we don't even know what that looks like. Not only that, what happens for the duration of 3 months that we're not here? I was starting to believe that they were going to hire someone else to then replace us. There was no way that they were not. And the reality of the situation is, now what I know to be true is that they were, and rightfully so. So we go to them, we say, hey, we would like to think about that 3-month sabbatical. We'll come back. Take a week, think about it, pray about it. Y'all come back. We come back. Hey, so we would like to take you guys up on the 3-month sabbatical. What does that actually look like? And also, this is the crazy part. This was the games that he was playing. The little mixed man. He was like, if I come back to this church, here are the things culturally that I want to see change. Because what was happening was, whenever these little, she's not talking to me and she's sitting in service with her head down, he was basically keeping track of, all the things that how he felt like the church was not responding in the way that he wanted them to. So it's just like, you guys sent me you told me to cease and desist. You guys told me to stop escalating the situation. When a diamond reached out to this pastor who, is supposed to be her friend, no one's responding. And it becomes this game where it's like, you're such a narcissist now that you have literally played a part in the part in your downfall, flip the script, then flip the script on the church to make it seem like it's their fault. But then in my mind, I'm like, it could also be their fault, because I don't know what they know, and they could be trying to protect you, and you could just be trying to protect yourself, and it's all a mess. So he says to them, if I come back after this sabbatical, what, these are the things that I want to see. And I'm just, again, along for the ride. Yeah. What are y'all going to do? How do we fix this? Where's the accountability? Blah, 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 blah. And I remember they say to him, if you don't really essentially like the culture of the church, big dog, we will pave the way for you to go somewhere else. Which was crazy, because just the week prior to that, the conversation was, you have such a long runway here. We love you here. Yada, yada, yada. Whoop, do, whoop, do, whoop. So now I'm just like, well, dang, how do y'all feel about us for real? So now I'm sitting here conflicted at the people that I want to love and that I want to serve. Meanwhile, all still showing up, being a wife, doing ministry, being a person, health, trying to take care of myself. So it's crazy. We come back to them, and before we were able to make a decision about what our choice was going to be, I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine. And that good friend of mine had the opportunity to talk to the young lady at the church. Keep in mind, I had not. And so we have lunch and we discuss their conversation. And what the church communicated to her as it pertains to her involvement with him was different than what the church told us as it pertained to his involvement with her. And what we were told was that this young lady was told, it's not your fault. You're not the problem. We're just gonna make all of this try to go away, essentially. And if we thought you were in the wrong, we would be moving a little bit more differently. She was also told that our attempts were to get her fired, which I just wanted to see some sort of greater accountability. I wanted to see not necessarily her fired, but I wanted to see her reprimanded for her behavior. So when I learned that we had been lied to and gaslit and all the things, I then go to my sorry former spouse and I say, yeah, we're done here. Because now I don't know who to believe. I don't believe you. I don't believe her. I don't believe them. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody's looking in my eye, and I'm about to go, I'm going to go crazy. So I'm like, we're done. I think we are done here. And I don't know however long it was, less than a week, he puts in his resignation and we resign from the church. 3 weeks later, if that, we stand on the platform in front of a total of probably close to 4,000 people over 2 services, not including an online platform, and we say, this man's health is not in the place for him to continue. He's not healthy. We're going to take some time away. But people don't really know. And someone clocked this in one of my comments and they said, yeah, they kind of just disappeared with the little black moon emoji, like, because we did. And I cannot explain to you the pain associated with feeling like, not feeling like these are your people. You're doing life like I got keys to this thing. Like, this is my second home. I'm here more than I'm at my house. And I have to stand in front of all these people and say, and do the whole pastor's wife thing. I never want to experience that feeling again. The way I literally wanted to, it was the most horrible feeling to essentially stand up in front of people and lie, is really all it was. And I mean, I still could not count how many people then, well, what's going on? Where are you guys going? Are you staying? We're telling people like because we don't know what the next move is. We don't, like, he has got to find another job. We're gonna have to sell our home and move and if like, and are we? What does all of this look like? The worst time of my life. It's so crazy because we end up leaving and we end up moving this was in October, end of October. Within a month and a half, we moved. God opened the door for him to get a job that was not a part of a church. And I remember, because it's coming to this time again, last year, this time, I was like, what was I doing this time last year? And I was packing my home before Christmas. My Christmas tree was up and I have boxes in my house because the place that I haven't even lived in for all of 12, this was a home that we purchased, not renting, mortgage. And we just, do you know what type of?
So they resigned. They stood in front of 4,000 people, smiled, said all the right things. Because that is what you do when you are a pastor's wife. You perform until the very last curtain call, not because you want to, but because the role demands it. Even when your heart is completely shattered behind that smile. And then they packed up their home before Christmas tree up, boxes everywhere, and moved to Franklin, Tennessee. And Diamond thought, maybe now, maybe without the church, without the pressure, without the politics, maybe now they could finally fix what was broken. Finally focus on each other. Finally be just a husband and a wife. She was about to learn that you cannot fix something the other person has already decided to leave broken. Parts 9 and 10. The end of the road. And honestly, the most painful part of this entire story.
This is part 9 of why I'm no longer a pastor's wife. So we have left the church that we were formerly on staff for 3 years, and we moved to Franklin, Tennessee. Now, I don't know how much y'all know about Franklin, but Franklin is this very cute, suburban, outskirt, very Caucasic city. And I had no business being there. I'm just speaking for myself. I did not feel like home at all, but it did feel like a little bit of a haven for a season. And during that time, I actually had been pursuing worship music and worship ministry and all these things. And so I ended up going to a very well-known church out there. I ended up going back to school out there for a very, very brief stint. And I thoroughly loved and enjoyed that community. And God really, really, really healed my heart during that time, because I was away from the chaos that had been the previous, 2.5 years of my life, dealing with, 3 years on staff, 3 years at other churches. I'm no longer in full-time ministry. I am not. Don't call me. I can't go to coffee. I'm unavailable because I'm no longer a pastor's wife. I'm not. Hat has come off. So I am feeling like, okay, excitement, because now this man and I are going to be able to work on our marriage, and we can focus on one another, and we can rebuild, and we can grow. We have this beautiful apartment, and we're going to figure it out. And life is slow, like pacing is good. Everything is going to be fine, or at least so I hoped. I had never seen a more disassociated, non-engaged, emotionally unavailable human in my life. It got to the point where I remember one of the little things that he did enjoy was sitting on the couch watching TV together. And by the time that we got there, I just made up in my mind, I'm not going to continue to build this habit where I go to work or I go to school and I come home and I sit on the couch for 4 or 5 hours. I can't do it. I'm not interested. I'm out. Like, I'm just not doing it. And so I remember, like, even that little like thing of like, I don't even like, I'm not even interested in like, I don't know how to spend time with you, because like this is not something that I like or I want to do, or like I have to make better use of my time, better use of my life. And I remember there was this one day, we moved in December of 2023. We're now in 2024, and it's early April, May, probably early April. And I have the worst, like I have just like anxiety, like I just don't feel good. My heart feels tight and heavy, and I just do not feel well. And I'm like, I hate this feeling. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't think I'm supposed to feel like this. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I had never said to him and looked at him and said, I am not happy. But I told that man that night, sitting on the floor, I am not happy. I am not supposed to feel like this as a wife. You don't, like, and I don't want people to take this and run with it. But that man didn't take me on trips and spoil me, and we didn't have nice dinners, and he didn't surprise me with like things. Everything that I owned by the time that I got ready to leave that marriage fit within a Jeep Compass. My personal belongings. I ain't talking about TVs and furniture and all these other things. My personal belongings, after almost 7 years of marriage, 6.5 to be dang near exact, fit within a small compact SUV. So that just kind of gives you, again, I'm not materialistic. However, it was always very interesting within the marriage that when we moved, like it was just like, I was constantly like ridding of things. I didn't really there weren't meaningful like photos hung up, and like the marriage was just always so bland and so dry that like my then like possessions or lack thereof became a reflection of what the actual marriage looked like. And I just could not figure out how did that happen? Like, how did we get here? So that night I am crying on the floor. I am pouring my heart out every which way. We have moved, like our finances are now like in question. We had just purchased a home, and now that's gone, and we just keep having to start over and over and over. And I want to build, and it feels like my life is going backwards instead of forward, and you might be the problem. is what I'm thinking to myself. You might be the problem. I'm saying all these things. So I'm like, you might be the problem. Because now I'm considering, like, I'm having to like take a moment and say, is this, you know, is this going to work for me? And I mean, pour my heart out, had never just tears, frustration, pain, anger, resentment, all of it just out. I had suggested counseling on multiple counts. So no, we can't afford counseling. Okay. Well, what else can we do? Can we be intentional with date nights? Like I would have taken anything. And instead, this man looks at me in my eyes. I swear on every single thing that I love. And he says, I just want to preach again. Okay. All right. Got it. So, F anything that I just said, because it seems to have literally gone over your head, over the river, and through the woods. I couldn't even grasp why I'm like, who is this person? Why can't I couldn't get through to, like, one of the most hurtful, like, experiences in communication that I've had with a human. And unfortunately, it was my spouse. I remember after I asked for counseling, we had a conversation, maybe a couple of days later, I bring it up again. You know, he communicates, we can't afford it. And then the following day, not even 24 hours later, hey, I found a therapist to do EDMR or whatever kind of therapy it is, and I'm going to try that. But when your wife asks you to go to marriage counseling, we can't afford it. Not to mention, you've been in counseling for all of 4 years now, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. I don't get to be a part of the sessions. I have no notes. I don't know what's being said. I don't know if you're actually being helped. I am seeing money spent on medical bills. You've got sleep apnea. You got this. You got that. And so everything, money, health, relationally, everything is a disaster at this point. So I remember my sister texting me and saying, hey, like, I want to, do your hair for you, let me know when you're, free to come down. Or like, hey, I'm probably going to text you in a couple of days. If you can come down to Atlanta, great, because I'm in Nashville. It's like a 3.5 hour drive. Also, this is the closest I have lived to my family in 6 years. In 6 years of marriage, every time I wanted to go see my family, I had to get on the plane and go see them. So I'm like, okay, great. Like, maybe I can like decompress and like figure out everything. And I'm going to go and spend some time with my family, and it's going to be great. And I do. And I will never forget getting in the car, driving, thinking to myself, I'm not sad that I'm leaving. And any other time that I would leave and go see my family or friends and fly or drive, I would be like, I'm going to miss my husband. And this time I didn't feel sad. And then I also thought, I'm not excited to go back. Not even probably 5 miles down the road. So I get home and I'm having, conversations with my family. And, the most enlightening was a conversation between my sister and I. And we're discussing, things like, in her relationship and like relationship with friends. And I'm like, Daz, I don't think I'm supposed to feel like this. I shouldn't be having these type issues at this stage. Something's off. Something's very, very off. And I think that there's more that I don't know than what I do know. And I don't know what to do. So now I start game planning, like what conversations need to be had. And for the first time, I'm like, my marriage might come to an end. For the first time, I'm thinking to myself, I may have to be the person to say, I don't know if this is going to work. Never, ever, ever on any account had I ever thought it that I would be the one to say, I don't think this is going to work. So go ahead and follow for the next part. I am going to try to make only one more video, but I don't know how long this series is going to be. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Merry Christmas. All the things. This is why I am no longer a pastor's wife. Part 10. This is the last and final part of this series, and I want to say thank you guys for coming along this journey. And I know that it has been quite the ride. Lots of videos, lots in the comments, and we are going to go ahead and wrap this up with the decision to then divorce my former spouse. At the very end of our marriage, I recall, God, okay, just get through it. After 6 years of marriage, my former spouse confessed to me that he'd had a pornography addiction for the entire duration of our marriage. And without trying to embarrass this individual or shame him in any way, shape, or form, I know that this is something that a lot of men and women struggle with. However, the hypocrisy that I felt at that time, considering his position in leadership and as a pastor, was something that I couldn't sort through it. And I was so disappointed and I was so hurt. This fact alone explained to me so much of the reason why this man was not available to me emotionally, physically, spiritually. Someone asked me in the comments, did y'all pray together? How? I remember asking, can you cover me? Can you pray for me? Let's pray together. Let's have these intentional moments. And we couldn't. And I should have known. And I think in my spirit, I knew for a long time, like, something is not on, like something's not right as it pertains to his sexuality and how he engages with me, because not to be, but why you should be hopping down on this every night. We're adults here, correct? Okay, thank you. And by the time I don't even know that you like me, I'm always changing my hair. I'm like, do I look nice? Do you think I'm cute? Like, I'm fishing for compliments. So at that point, when he confessed that to me, I was like, okay. I recall then, let me give you all the visual of the exit. I remember I go to his job because I'm thinking we're going to go to dinner and we're going to talk. He ends up sharing this confession with me at his job in the parking lot. Previous to this, I remember I was at home. This was right after I got back from Georgia. So I told you I went to Georgia, came back, trying to sort through some things mentally. And I'm home and I don't feel safe in my space. I'm like, something is off. I'm going to find some piece of evidence. And I'm like, I'm just going to put some things in a few bags. And I know that I'm going to go back to Georgia and we're just going to see what happens. So I put some things in the car, get to him, and I'm just like, look at him and I'm like, dude, what's going on? That is when he confesses that to me in that moment. And we talk for like 2 hours. We talk, crying. And I remember just being like, I feel betrayed. Like, I don't know what to do. And I remember looking at him and I'm like, I think I need to take some time because I'm hurt. And I know that if I try to stay here and work through my hurt with you, I'm going to hurt you. Like, not physically, emotion, like I'm gonna hurt you. Like, it's gonna be more painful for me to be here than for me to leave. And so I'm like, well, what do you think would be like a, healthy amount of time to, do what we need to do? And this man looks at me, he tells me he needs 2 weeks. He needs 2 weeks. I literally at that point was so emotionally defeated that I was just like, 2 weeks it is. It just escalates from there. I remember that night I was going to stay home. That night I was going to drive to Georgia, drive back. So keep in mind, I just drove that day. I was going to drive back and we get ready to like say our goodbyes. Okay, cool. We'll see you in 2 weeks, whatever. And something in my head was just like, a diamond, sleep on it. Now keep in mind, like, I wasn't like leaving forever at this point. I just knew like it was going to be some time, whether 2 weeks or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stay home. It's dark, it's cold, I gotta drive through the mountains. I'm just gonna like stay the night at the house. I pull up to the house. I'm on the phone with a girlfriend of mine. We're trying to come up with a plan. Like, hey, do I need to come get you? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm going to stay here the night. I'm going to be fine. Like, I don't feel like he's going to hurt me or anything crazy like that. I'm fine. He walks up to the car and he's like, hey, are you staying? I said, well, if that's okay with you, yeah, I'm going to stay the night. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go for a walk. So your wife literally gets ready to leave you for 2 weeks, but you came up with that timeline, and then you say to me, I'm gonna go for a walk. The next morning, that man wakes me up. He wakes me up. Hey, I couldn't sleep. Sir, are you nigga, is you cool? Like what is your deal? Point blank period, that man wanted me out of his space and had wanted me gone for a long time. And I was trying to talk to him and confront him, talk to him about the pornography, talk to him about all the things that have been going on, and that man gave me nothing. And he looks at me and he says to me, Diamond, scripture says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church. Diamond, it was God's job to love the church, and it was my job to love you. I did not do my job well, and if you need to leave, I understand. So I put my little backpack on. I said, lace up your boots. Put on your backpack. It's time to... I'm not going to let you tell me to leave again. Like, I'm just going to go at this point. I'm not going to wait for you to tell me again. I got it. Get in the car. At this point, like, I don't even know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, cool. I guess I'll still see you in 2 weeks. It just goes downhill from there. I very quickly start coming up with a plan because I'm like, I don't know who I'm dealing with. I remember asking him, we have a shared bank account at this time, which, there's so many side videos to make from this. Long story short, he removes money from our bank accounts, tells me that he's going to send me a certain amount of money at a certain amount of time to continue to support me. I was like, you know what, dude, I'm about to file these papers. You ain't got to worry about me. This is all you got to take care of. Take care of the vehicle that I'm driving that's currently in your name, and that's it. He comes back to me 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I don't want a divorce. I don't care. You're getting it. Well, I don't want to get divorced. Well, I'm going to serve you. So now we're a whole year later. January of this year, not a whole year. So that was like last year, 2020. That was 2020. I can't remember, y'all. So anyway, it's not until January of this year that once he realized that, like, he's just not going to just budge out of this easily. I'm not just going to hand over, car and like this stuff to you. And I've literally walked away with nothing. Do y'all know that man sent me $500 on one time, and I have figured out, with the help of God, in 16 years. I'm just kidding. I've had some very incredible support in my life. But with the help of God, that man cannot say that thus far he brought me. That would be God. In January of this year, he hit me up and was like, if we had a situation with the vehicle. He was like, boom, 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 we figured this out. Will you sign the papers? Yes. And so April of this year, the divorce was final. And there is so much more I could say. But all I want to say is God has kept me. When I now understand the sentiment, I should have lost my mind a long time ago. I understand the sentiment. I'm sure there are so many questions that you guys have, and there are probably so many details that I've left out. And we are going to now start answering questions that you guys have as it pertains to this video, and making other videos that I think are going to be helpful for you guys on your own journeys. So if this has helped you in any way, please send me a message. I love to chat with you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
7 years. 6.5 to be exact. And everything Diamond owned fit inside a Jeep Compass. Not because she had nothing, but because a marriage that empty, that dry, that bland doesn't accumulate much. There were no meaningful photos on the walls, no trips, no surprises, no dinners, no moments that made her feel like this man even noticed her. She was changing her hair, fishing for compliments, trying to feel seen by a man who was too busy managing his own secret to see anything at all. And what was the secret? After 6.5 years of marriage, this man, who stood on a pulpit every single week and told people how to walk in integrity, confessed a pornography addiction that had been running silently in the background of their entire marriage, while Diamond was in the spare bedroom turning it into a prayer room. While she was on the floor crying, asking for date nights. While she was begging for marriage counseling, he said they couldn't afford. And then found a therapist for himself the very next day. He quoted scripture at her on the way out, said it was God's job to love the church and his job to love her, and he hadn't done his job well. Then essentially asked her to leave. So she packed a bag, laced up her boots, and walked out with her faith intact, her dignity intact, and the quiet understanding that sometimes God's protection doesn't look like a blessing. Sometimes it looks like an exit. Diamond, we see you, and we are glad you got out. Now, drop something in the comments. Was Diamond too patient for too long? Or did she handle this exactly the way a woman of her character had to? Because I genuinely need to know where you'll land on this one.